You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Last year, we did a couple of seminar events that were like 2.5, 3-day weekend events. We're doing those again this year. We're going to 4 different Shields locations, and we're going to do a seminar. Myself, Ryan Lampers, and Mark Livesay. One of them is a bear tour event. And
Boise, Idaho.
The other 3 are elk related. Yep. So if you want to come to those events, they're in 4 different states.
Idaho, Montana, Colorado, and Texas.
There you go. To learn about it, we're calling it the Peaks Tour. Go to treelineacademy.net. Go over there. Look up the Peaks Tour information there. You can sign up. Come join us. Like I said, it's myself, Ryan Lampers, Mark Livesay. We're going to be at each of those events. Come, learn, and ask us questions. It was a hit last year when we did it, so I think you're going to enjoy this one. It's a fun multi-day event, and hope to see you there. Go to treelineacademy.net and look up the Peaks Tour. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm Brian Call. I've got Brad Hunt here with me today. If you're listening to this episode, you might want to go watch the YouTube video, because we're going to be showing you the performance of arrow and broadhead through the body cavity of the elk that I shot in the movie The Struggle. We've received a lot of comments from folks on that on the video itself, and it's been a little amusing, actually, It always is. And anytime you get into arrow builds and broadheads and broadhead performance, we have a passionate archery community out there who will chime in and give you their 2 cents,
which I love. Talk about what they want to see.
Well, what I would say is, folks should check their biases at the door for today's discussion as much as you can. Just put out all your opinions to the side. Just push them out. Push them out. I know it's hard. Just shove them away and just open your mind. And then just look at data. Yeah. And then sort of make a decision from there on, a fresh new decision based on data, and erase all your previous conceptions, ideas about arrows, broadhead builds, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're not like here to steer you down one path or the other.
I am not here.
I don't care. We can just explain our experience.
I don't really care. I think people listening might think, well, he has an agenda. He has that. No, I don't really care.
Not at all.
I truly don't care what bow you shoot, what arrows you use, what broadheads you use. I'm just here to impart to you my experiences, and you can take them for what they're worth.
Exactly.
But one thing I have observed, and this is the sort of social commentary I'll give right now. When archers, bow hunters in general, when they're watching this elk film, for example, viewers who are big on fixed blade, broadheads, heavy arrows, fixed blade, that sort of thing. What they see in this video, and they've made it clear, is dumbass used mechanical. This is what you get. Lucky you recovered this elk. You're so lucky. It barely, you got lucky. And guys who use mechanical heads are like, look at all that blood, and wow, that was,
you wouldn't have recovered that without a mechanical.
Yeah, without a mechanical, blah, blah, blah. This could have been way worse.
Yeah.
So what I see is neither party has full data on what happened.
Exactly.
They don't really know exactly what happened. Both parties are guessing. Both sides of this community are guessing. And so what we're going to do today is actually talk about what really happened. And we're going to put that film, the video, so you can see for yourself where the arrow was in the body cavity. We strip away the meat.
Damage,
so you can see the ribs, all the bone and stuff that was in the trajectory of the arrow, how far the arrow went into the body, and so on. We're going to cover all of that, and you can just see with your own eyes. And then we'll tell you what we experienced while we were there. Okay? So that's kind of what we want to go over. So everybody wants to know about broadheads and arrows and experience, and we all want to kill effectively.
And what better way to test that type of gear than on an animal?
I was on a bear hunt. and I shot 2 bears in Alberta.
Yep.
At about 20, 25 yards. Both bears were 7-footers, roughly. Big bears. And bears are not elk, different animal.
Yeah.
But, and I'll talk to you a little bit of my opinion, what the difference is, and what arrows and broadheads do.
Yeah.
But basically, I used a mechanical, the same mechanical almost, that I used on this
cutting
elk
diameter
on the bears. And the bears died instantly. Right, they didn't even run away. They got hit, and then they went like 10, 15 feet and fell over, and it was over. And the hole was massive. We contrast that with a fixed blade. It was a kudu, cut on contact, 2-blade with a bleeder type of broadhead. And I'm going to show you. My buddy Jason shot a bear with that, and you can see the entry and exit wounds. We can compare the entry and exit wound that I got on my bear versus the one Jason got with the 2-blade. I also have a video that I've been working on of Jeremiah's sheep hunt, where he shot a sheep with a same mechanical broadhead I've been using, and the devastation. He wouldn't have, I believe, recovered this sheep if he had used a fixed blade. And what I want you to do is sort of, again, just dismiss your biases and just kind of look at the data. All right, folks, if you like the show and you want to support us and you are in need of a taxidermist, check out our friend Jeremy over at Judkins Custom Taxidermy. He does incredible work. He's got the cleanest taxidermy shop I've ever seen. And when you use the code GRITTY, Jeremy is going to expedite your project by 2 to 3 months. And he already has an excellent turnaround time. So check it out. Go to Judkins Custom Taxidermy. Let him know Brian Call at Gritty sent you. Get your mount expedited. Now let's get back to the show. This is just 4 examples. 2 bears, 1 sheep, and an elk. Where there's some...
And I don't have a lot of experience with it. I've got 2 axis deer. Don't have much to show for as far as photos and video, but I mean, devastation. That's all I have to say. And my pretty axis deer hides are not so pretty because they've got holes that are like this big in there.
Yeah, so we're there's definitely downsides to the setup that I shot my elk with. No question about it. Right. And there's upsides. So we're just going to kind of weigh those pros and cons today, have a little talk. I had been using the Valkyrie system for about 5 years, which is a heavy front of center arrow with a heavy broadhead up front. The arrow itself was about 525 grains. So a heavy arrow. And the FOC was like 22% or 23% up front. So the weight of the it's heavy up front. And I was using like the Jag 3-blade cut on contact Jagger broadhead, fixed blade, 3-blade. I used the long range ones. I used the standard Jag. They were like 200 grain heads. And I shot a number of elk and other animals with the Valkyrie. And the arrow seems like it can go through concrete. I mean, I think it legit does. It's got so much power and there's so much weight behind a 525 grain arrow. And that broadhead is it's devastating on penetration. And I shot a number of elk and a number of deer, and the arrow would go like sluice right through the body. It's without question, come out the other side. I mean, it's just like a hot knife through butter. It would even go through huge bones and just shatter them into bits, like the biggest knuckle on an elk on the top of the leg, and it just goes bam and just shatters it. So that is the upside of that system. It also was heavy, and so it would fly with a big arc. At long range, it was less forgiving. You had to have your bow tuned pretty good because it's a fixed blade. You got a big old fat blade on the 3-blade on the front. You better have your bow dialed in because those...
And others are less fortunate when it comes to draw length.
Yeah,
so
I got
a little speed there.
Draw length, high poundage, but short draw length. So when you add it all up, I was okay with a lot of those downsides for this upside. of it being hitting hard. But as the years had gone by, I didn't get the best blood trails. I'd shoot animals, perfect shots, double lung, no blood.
Pass through.
Yeah. Very, very little blood.
Yeah.
And after a couple of frustrating recoveries, I decided to try the Valkyrie mechanical. And this was because I was hunting coos deer. So I was like, it's a little critter. I don't need this heavy hitting like buffalo bow and arrow. So let's do this. So I switched it up and I threw on the Valkyrie Death Switch Broadhead, which is like 2 inches wide, something like that.
Yeah, it might be 1.5.
1.5. And it's a 2-blade expandable. And instantly I was getting the same sort of pass-through results. And that hole was so big, these animals would fall in front of me, often not get very far and just pass out, lose too much blood. Preferred it over the fixed blade by a mile. And, you know, I'm hunting deer, elk, even on a moose, you know, I would stick with that same mechanical, that Death Switch. And I got incredible results. Just it didn't matter. It was incredible results. And I sort of, that was sort of the beginning of my journey away from
a fixed blade
head. I know it's sacrilegious for some of you, but I also decided not only was I going to go away from fixed blades a little bit and try more mechanical stuff, I was also going to shoot a lighter arrow. What I wanted was, as I practice archery and get better and better and more skilled at it, man, it is great to be able to take a longer range shot, extend your, and if you're a capable shooter, which I've been at times, you know, 100-yard shot, that's in my wheelhouse. You know, 10 out of 10 times.
All depends on the day too. Like, and that's where,
or that the setup that particular year, how much practice you got, you know, throughout the season, how hot you are going into season. Cause I mean, it's like golf, you know, sometimes you're dialed. Sometimes it's like,
all it takes is one damn shot to like totally frustrate you. And then you're back trying to figure out how to shoot a bow again.
Yeah. And so the setup, I wanted to be able to leverage my shooting ability a little more if I wanted to. And a heavy arrow limits your range quite a bit. And by the time you get out there to some of these ranges like 80 yards, which is a pretty easy shot for me at this point in my archery career, it is a tough shot when I have a heavy arrow and a slow heavy arrow.
The margin of error is so much bigger now, not necessarily because of the wind or something, but
the float,
everything else.
If you're just off just a tiny micro amount, the further every yard you add to the shot attempt, you're starting to have exponential loss in speed and a drop in the arrow. So I decided I was going to drop down to a for smaller game, like a 420 grain arrow total weight. And for elk, a 450 grain arrow, elk and bigger. Okay. And I just did a little digging and stuff, and it's still a very heavy arrow. I mean, it's both those arrows are pretty darn heavy, given the sharpness of modern heads and their capabilities. I was fairly confident. I did a lot of research talking to folks that have been with a lot of experience using similar setups. You know, we talked to one of the people that sort of influenced my thinking on this was where there's two people hanging out with Brian Barney and Sam Davis up at the Western Hunting Summit with Lampers, having conversations with them and hearing them talk about how they're using mechanicals. And, you know, not too long ago, I think Barney shot a moose.
Shot a moose. Sam Davis shot a buffalo.
And shot a buffalo.
Bear every year. Elk, deer.
And they're using mechanicals exclusively as far as I know. And their arrows aren't super heavy either.
No.
They're,
I mean, Sam, he has a huge advantage. He has a super long draw length, pulls a heavy bow. Where, like Barney, he's at a much greater disadvantage, you know, short arms, short draw length. So he's getting that speed. He can't go a crazy heavy arrow. Sam can go, I mean, Sam even more so than me. We're about similar, but he still has an inch longer draw length. I'm at 30.
Sam seems giant.
So it's like, even that 1 inch is a huge factor benefit. Like
Right.
we notice it between you and I, and we have about almost a 2-inch draw length difference.
Yeah.
We can have the exact same setup, and I get about 18 to 25 feet per second more than what you do.
Yep.
Just because of draw length. That's
Yeah.
it.
It's so I'm trying to meet that perfect blend of speed and weight
Right.
for what I want.
Mhm.
And I felt like 450 grains. I prefer 420 in arrow flight,
Yeah. Right.
but 450 is still pretty good.
Especially for pin gapping and everything like that. It's just so much better when you have the speed.
Yeah. So the next thing was, okay, what head?
Right.
And Jeremiah, at our friend Jeremiah Plyer at the Wild Arrow Archery Shop, he had used the G5 Megameat on his sheep, and I was editing the film, and I was like, wow, that's a devastating cut. And then he was talking to me about the experience that other guys in the shop and just the word on the street, because he owns a bow shop.
As a whole, as of kind of all the broadheads that they sell,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be Sever, G5, doesn't matter.
All of them.
All of them.
And that's the one he picked. And so it bent my ear a little bit.
Mhm.
And I wanted to find out more about it. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to run this Megameat head. And it's a 2-inch hole.
So the Megameat is a 2-inch and the DeadMeat is a 1.5.
So it's a 3-blade 2-inch hole.
Yep.
It's insane. Okay. I look at that head and I'm like, that's too much. It's gonna have all these problems. Okay. People have engineering theories behind it and what's wrong with it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm more like, head results. Like, used it, result. Used it, result. You can give me all the theories you want behind it, but I just really am like analyzing the aftermath and going, mistake or not. That's as simple as my analysis. I'm not that deep.
Right.
And so I used it for my bear hunt. Now, bears, I've long said for a decade, use mechanicals on bears.
For sure.
Mechanical. They're soft. They're one of the softest critters on planet
And
Earth.
their hide is so loose that it has so much movement, so it's easy to close up holes.
Their hides are like squishy and slippery, but so thin.
Right.
Paper thin. It's not like a moose where it's like an inch thick,
Exactly,
like piece of leather. It's like paper thin. It's like your skin on your head.
I know.
And or your body. Easy to pierce. And then the body itself seems quite squishy. The ribs aren't like robust like a buffalo or a moose or something.
And I would say from shoulders forward, they're a wrecking ball. Like
they're all
a
meat and
machine.
heavy bone. But I mean, shoulders, the crease back, it's this soft little squishy animal. And so I've always been a proponent for mechanicals. So we use the mechanicals, shot those through bears, and I've just seen tremendous results.
Yeah.
When fellas used fixed blades or they used cut on contact blades, and I've been in bear camp many times where that's happened. We've had hard recoveries on bears.
Right.
And you'll see in this video that we're going to throw in here, probably cut to it randomly, what I'm talking about. The hole from the fixed blade, and this is like I said, a
cut on contact
2-point.
Yep.
And I've seen this happen before. We couldn't find a bear. It got shot double lung. And it had gone like 100 yards, but it was in BC in the
super
bush.
thick. Yeah.
And there's no blood. It was frustrating. We almost didn't find the bear. It was almost tragic, but we got the bear. It took us 12 hours or something. It'd been out there a while. Thankfully, the meat was still good and everything was still good. But basically, it looked like when you hung it up and we were skinning it and we peeled the hide back. You could see how the hide had a slit. Maybe the bear was leaned forward or stretched when the arrow went in. And then when he went into more relaxed state, the bear hide slid over the top of the hole and sealed it like a lid.
Yeah.
Perfectly sealed. And the slit in the body cavity, the actual muscle and bone, was so paper thin. And then the bear is so fatty, his tissue is so fatty and greasy that it just kind of greases up and closes anyway.
Yeah.
So all the blood was internal. It didn't escape the body cavity. Now, when you punch a hole in an animal, anything, any living thing, and it's a giant 2-inch hole.
Right.
Okay. Blood can't help but just fall freely from the hole.
It's like there's no way that blood can clot It's just because the hole can't close up.
It can't close up, and not only that, the blood pressure inside that body is dropping fast.
Drastically.
Like fast.
Yep.
So it's like so much blood. It's like you hit your carotid. Someone slices it. It just is like you got seconds and you fall over.
Yeah.
Like it's gone. It's over.
Yep.
Donezo. That's what a gaping wound channel does. It just causes so much immediate and fast blood loss. Small, tiny holes that go through the entire body cavity and out the other side, you have a long cut, but the hole doesn't
nowhere for
blood.
The fluid to
it doesn't just
out.
pour out.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't pour out fast.
Yeah,
it bleeds a lot internally, bleeds out each hole, but it sort of trickles a little bit because the hole is small, has other places to go that are of less resistance than the hole itself. When you put a 2-inch hole or 1.5-inch hole, dude, it just falls out the hole. So on this bear hunt, I used the Megameat, G5 Megameat Broadhead. I punched through 2 7-footers, double lung. The hole was about the size of a pop can.
Gigantic.
Gigantic. And that's both the entry and the exit. Maybe just slightly smaller than like a Coke bottle, massive. And the bear, I have the video and it'll be released in April, the film of these bear hunts, and you'll see the performance of the Broadhead with your own eyes, contrasting with the performance of other people's Broadheads that were on that hunt.
But for now, you get to look at the photos.
Yes, the Broadhead was in the video of the carcass laying there.
Correct.
The arrow, the hole it put in, the arrow goes in and the bear spins, falls down, and this plume of blood just like a red cloud just sprays out. Like a fire extinguisher. The
unedited version is a little rough to watch, to be honest.
It might be a little X-rated for
because it is so devastating. Like, holy cow.
And then the bear spins and it looks as though someone dumps like the stream of blood coming out like a gallon.
Yeah.
It just goes
like you got the gas nozzle
it just gushes out. And this is in 1 second.
Yeah.
Not even 1 second. It's a half of a second from the entry, and it's pouring out, pouring. And like I can't describe to you the amount.
Well, we saw it in your elk hunt too, especially as in person, we weren't sure. But as we obviously have the film release, we broke down the film and stuff. It's within 1 to 2 seconds at most that the blood is
instant
pouring
because you're watching it in hyper slow motion.
Exactly.
When you watch it in real speed, it happens. It seems like the blood is instantly out the hole. Like there's not even a pause.
Yeah.
He gets hit and then he straightens and blood just starts pouring out.
So I think the question is always like, do I want to sacrifice the penetration for the wound channel, or do I want to sacrifice the wound channel for penetration?
Well, I would say more like this. Bigger the wound channel, the less penetration.
Right.
The smaller the wound channel, the more easy the penetration.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
To me, it goes back to that speed versus weight balance.
Yep.
It goes to wound channel versus penetration. Like, where's that sweet spot?
Yeah. And that's even for me, like switching over to the G5s, I always shot, like, take the Annihilator Broadhead, for example. This is just my experience. Killed, 3 or 4 elk with it, killed some mule deer, my coos deer, some pigs. And with that, it did as a fixed blade, it created a giant hole. Now, because it did have so much friction and stuff, I was kind of still already sacrificing a little bit of the penetration on that, but it always did create a giant hole the way it's moving meat, moving mass out of the way. I think one of the downsides that I always found is like I would go through and I would sharpen them up myself so they could rip and cut really easy. Coming from the factory back then, they weren't that sharp. And so that was like, to me, I was like, I want a sharper broadhead that can move that tissue out.
I think that's how it works with a lot of fixed blades, I should say.
Yep. Right.
When I shot these, I did this on a couple of bears, and then you can look at the hole on the bears versus with the mechanical versus the 2-blade. Fixed. And so the immediate blood loss is pretty intense. Then when you jump ahead to my elk, the elk shot, I'm going to break it down. Okay. the animal was quartering away hard. Now,
quartering away and downhill.
So meaning his front legs are, he sloped downhill.
Yeah.
His butt's as high as his hump. You know, when an elk is standing broadside, the hump is quite a bit
like
above. But here they're level because he's facing downhill toward that other bull. He's also below me quite a ways. Mm-hmm. So I'm shooting downhill. You can see when I'm at full draw, the sort of the angle. It's not a ridiculous steep downhill, but it's downhill.
Right.
Also, the wind was switching and blowing at my back if I dropped too low.
Yeah.
So I couldn't, like, as long as I stayed high enough up on the hill, the wind would catch me in the face. I didn't want my wind to just hit me in the back and then just run off and completely blow it. And when an elk smells you, it's over.
Yeah.
It's not the same as hearing, seeing. So I'm on that hill and I come to full draw multiple times, like 3 times.
Yep.
Don't take the shot. Finally, I'm like, okay, he's settling down. He's not moving as much. I got a window, but it's a steep quartering.
Right.
But it's 40 yards. And I'm like, you know what? I'm making this shot like I'm drilling baseballs at all these longer shots than that. So felt good. Well, I was calm. So I decided to take it. Now, that steep of a quartering shot will not allow me to hit the offside lung. It's a 1 lung shot.
Right.
That is, I'm like shaving the side of his butt to get it in where I want it to enter into the lung.
Right.
But I'm basically not getting the opportunity to hit 2 lungs at that angle. I'm going to hit 1.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of debate on whether you should do that or not, whether that's enough.
Right.
I've seen Anthony do that on a quartering 2, like stupid steep at like 7 feet or so, 7 yards up in the Eagle Caps once. I was like, dude, that is such, and we have it on video, it's such a sharp angle there.
Right.
And when that arrow goes in, it's like mine. Like, it's almost flat against the body. And it had to go like halfway through the back of the shoulder a little bit to get in and grab that lung. And he killed that thing. And I think he was using like a Muzzy Broadhead back then.
Right.
So I know we did a podcast with Ryan Carter and he was saying, you know, that bothered me just hitting 1 lung. And I felt like you're kind of lucky that you got that because it could have gone a long way on just 1 lung.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, Anthony's bull didn't go far. Fixed blade, 1 lung. I'm not, you know, I actually somewhat disagree with Carter on that.
Yeah.
I've seen animals go far on a 1 lung hit.
Same.
But I've also seen animals just completely crush on a 1 lung hit.
Yep. And I think just what I experienced, like on your bull, was, there's the 1 lung, but the wound channel that was caused, like there was so much blood out of just that 1 lung that.
Well, there's a difference too between a lung hung perfectly broadside,
right,
and you put a 2-inch hole in it,
right, versus running lengthwise.
Which
Correct.
I think Anthony and me both. When you hit 1, so if the arrow went in perfectly broadside, and stopped, okay, after hitting 1 lung and didn't go because you didn't get penetration, didn't go all the way through and hit that other lung, okay, you have a hole, especially if it's a mechanical 2-blade or something. It goes in, stops. Let's say you don't have, it's a little kid shooting or whatever. It doesn't go in far.
Do you mean a fixed blade, 2-blade?
Yeah, fixed blade, 2-blade. Yeah. Like I could see, you see that sometimes where they don't get penetration, barely goes in, and it hits the 1 lung, and it's a small hole, and it's perpendicular, the shot to the lung.
Yep,
that's a different damage level of damage than mechanical,
almost parallel with that lung.
And you'll see in the video. We'll cut to the video. Just want to look at this hole this arrow made, just to see what the broadhead did and the arrow did. It just severed this rib right here. Went in at this angle, cut this rib right in half. Just completely, just ate this elk rib for lunch. and then it slipped underneath this rib, and I want to see, the arrow goes all the way in. It snapped off right there. Yeah, like I said, it sunk into the logo on that arrow. Yeah, it went in up to the blue line, right in there. You know, on that shot, it was quartering away. I wanted to now analyze, you know, 40 yards downhill. I really wanted to see what this broadhead did. It's always good to, I don't know, I always am so curious about this stuff. I hope people that watch find it interesting, useful. Right in there, right in that lung, high lung, but it was downhill, so I'm curious. But yeah, that mechanical through this rib right here, went right through this, tore it to pieces. I mean, it's just shrapnel, bone fragments. So completely sliced it in half, and then had the momentum to get in there and go into that, at least that lung. Oh man. How does she look after going through a rib cage, cutting the ribs to pieces? Not bad. Blades are a little bent, but didn't matter. It's a wide cut, accurate hit. Went through the rib cage lengthwise, like from the side instead of head on. It went this way, and just, I don't know if that seems more stout this way than that way. I don't know, but completely destroyed it, Brad. And the lungs, gosh, that's just such a big lung hole. He's bleeding like a stuck pig, dude. That's the whole lung right there. Feeling the whole thing. One lung. It's just such a huge wound channel. It didn't matter. You just bled out. Didn't hit the other lung. I can feel the lung on the other side. This is the one side, but it completely cut this lung into nothing. I mean, gosh, this lung is just, it's got a, did you see the hide? The hole in the hide is this big. It went in on an angle too, but the hole in this is, I can feel it. It's like that. It's a giant hole. So, wow. And this hole, much more devastating than I thought. It cut the tendons in his back. It went into his spine. It cut the bones in the spine, but it also came out the offside, behind the offside shoulder, because it come out right here.
Yeah.
Right here. It went in, and it's poking through the body right about there, which would have put it through the other lung.
Yep.
What a terrible shot, but it went in, and it is poking out right there on the other side. It should have hit the front of that. I can't tell from this side. There's a broadhead in there. Was she sharp? Yeah, it hit the other lung. I'm surprised it went through this much muscle and bone.
Right to that, yeah.
I mean, I'm putting my fingers in there. It's like, that's a lot of nastiness for this head to try to penetrate for a mechanical, and it went all the way through that nasty stuff and came out right about like that on the other side. You know, kind of poking through upward.
How does that other broadhead look?
A little bit of carnage all over these things, but they're both fully deployed, and it has all three blades intact. This one is the one that went through the back, and all the bones in the back. It had to fight through just heavy bone. But this one, it had to go through a rib cage, a rib, in the exact lengthwise direction. Destroyed it into shrapnel and then crushed that lung. I don't know, dude. I'm impressed, Brad. The bears I shot with the Megameat, dead meat on this elk. There's my answer. It's a good killing machine. 450 grains, 125 head. Good speed, flat shooting. He didn't go far. And for such a high hit, he bled. He bled pretty good. Even when he came up that hill, there was blood coming out, which uphill, when he came downhill, you could find the blood easier. But look at how much coagulated in there. I mean, just hemorrhaging so fast. So much blood loss. Dang. What a day. What a day. It's hard to replace how this feels. When you cut to the video, you can see like the broadhead goes in, breaks the rib, and not just breaks it, it took out like a 1-inch section of the rib.
And then
it was just shrapnel.
Shattered everything else around it, yeah.
And then broadhead goes through and it catches the back end of the lung perfectly and goes through the entire length of the lung.
Right.
And it goes through the whole lung, and the broadhead stops at the end of the lung and into the chest cavity. If you picture an elk's chest cavity where the rib cage is and everything's inside the rib cage into the throat, the arrow basically had all the momentum to snap that elk rib crosswise, go into the lung, take out the entire length of the lung, and then basically stop when it hit the front of the chest cavity where all the muscle and bone form.
Right.
So that hollow chest cavity space, once that arrow penetrated that cavity, it went all the way through the cavity until it hit too much resistance on the opposite side.
Right. Yep, exactly.
And that's what I expect a G5 DeadMeat type Grim Reaper, like mechanical broadhead to do. It did what I thought it would do.
Exactly.
It did what I planned on it doing. I didn't plan on having to snap a rib right on entry crosswise, but it ate it for lunch. You can see it in the video.
It did too.
No problem. Blades were a couple like tiny bends or something. Don't care. They're meant to bend and twist and flex. That's how these mechanical heads have been built.
Yeah.
They've learned over the years to build them this way.
And I would say this too, whatever mechanical it is, the technology of mechanical broadheads in the last 2 years, 3 years is way better than it was.
It's not your grandpa's mechanical.
No, not
Just
at all.
Is not.
It's not.
The rear deploy, it puts an entry hole that's massive, not just
it's almost
exit.
a fail-proof deployment system, really.
And they don't accidentally come undone in flight either, the way that they lock in. And then they don't accidentally stick closed. They can't. The pressure pushes them. They're just different than they used to be. And so that broadhead goes through that entire piece and ends. So I had some people say, you barely got penetration and stuff. And I think I got like 20 inches of penetration.
Yeah, we'd have to measure on the arrow, but it's
18,
close to
20 something, like the whole length of the rib cage. It went in.
Yep.
And you can see on the video the length. I mean, it's 70% of the arrow shaft went into the body. Like I said, I don't really need it to go anywhere else once it goes through the entire chest cavity.
Yeah.
I don't need it to exit his neck. I don't need it to, it got in and smashed what I wanted.
Yeah.
Not just that, it did it while putting a Coke bottle size hole through everything.
Right.
And you can see in the video, I mean, just watch it. The second the bull turns, the blood just starts splashing out the hole.
Yeah.
And it is running down his body by the time he gets over to me. And look, the bull didn't go anywhere. If I hadn't taken the second shot, he was so sick. He went trot, trot, trot. And he was like,
yeah, you don't hear it very well on the film, but like you can hear that bull. He's struggling I mean, he's drowning.
Yeah. You're pretty far behind me up on the hill. I'm right next to him, like,
right,
10 yards, 8. Yeah. Like he's right there. And I can hear him going, like trying to breathe. And that lung is collapsed. But the blood loss is just pouring out of him.
Yep.
So I was basically, when I chose a mechanical like this, I chose to get less penetration by design. I chose to get a larger wound channel. I chose to try to get as much blood pouring out that one, whatever penetration I could get, giant hole, and then uncontrollable bleeding. That was my objective. And in analysis, after the fact analysis, I got what I wanted. It did what I wanted and outperformed what I thought it could do.
Yeah.
The bull came and stood there, and he's standing there for a minute, and he's just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. Some people, because we've seen this like on a Primos video back in the day, I'd watch like heart shoots on an elk, runs 30 yards, stands there and passes out, falls over.
Right.
And that will happen when there's a lack of blood pressure through the heart, or when you lose oxygen and the lungs both collapse.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of variables that go into that. But if you take out both lungs and the bull runs, he tries to breathe, he pumps that, death comes faster, stops at 30 or 40 yards, stands there, wobbles, falls over. That's going to come from, my guess, it comes from two things. I could be wrong, but I think it comes from a lack of blood pressure. That's hemorrhaging, just massive blood loss. And you felt it, like, let's say when you stand up too fast or something, and there's not the right amount of blood pressure, and you're like, poof, could pass out.
Yep.
It's like that, but actual loss of, like, there's no blood pumping. It all fell out of your body.
Yeah.
And before you're dead, your body just collapses. The other thing is, you see it in jiu-jitsu. Someone's air supply gets cut off. Done.
Yeah.
They fall over.
Right.
Heart can still be pumping. Blood can still be pumping. If you suffocate an animal, their lungs fill with blood fast.
Yeah.
They're like, and they've exerted energy, especially like they've jogged a little, and it's like the demand for oxygen has now exceeded your capacity
exactly.
to breathe. It accelerates the death. So when an animal's already suffocating from oxygen loss and then runs, he demands that much more. That's why if they get hit and they kind of stand there, they might stand there longer than if they had run 50 yards because they don't, you think about it. You don't, if you're just like trying to barely use any muscle at all,
so
you could stay
walking on a road versus hiking my fat butt up on the mountain. It's like you breathe a lot harder.
You need more oxygen.
You need a lot more
activity. Yep. And when you're depleted with it, you pass out.
Right.
Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, you can do that by shopping at Stealthy Hunter, a great partner of ours. They sell rifle covers, which we use on every single hunt. They sell glassing pads. They sell supplements. They got CBD gummies, other products over there. Check it out. Make sure you use the code GRITTY. And now, back to the show. This bull, he just runs a little bit, and you can tell he is wrecked.
Yeah.
He is wrecked. And you can imagine what he felt was his rib get shattered crosswise.
Right.
What he felt was an arrow take out the entire breathing capability of his right lung. And what he feels is blood just gushing into his chest cavity and out a hole on his body.
Right.
What he feels is massive emergency, massive catastrophic level damage is what he feels.
Right.
And he comes and he stands there basically, and he's just like, what do I do? And his ears are pinned and his eyes are lidded, and you can tell the bull is struggling.
Yeah.
And I managed to get a second arrow out because he's so close. Drew my bow. And what you don't see in that video is he's quartering away from me. He's not broadside.
Still downhill as well.
And he's downhill.
Yep.
this is what's interesting. The arrow goes in, and it wasn't a great shot. It should have been lower, and it should have been further back.
Mm-hmm.
I should have aimed lower and further back. That said, it still grabbed. It went through his, and we'll cut to the video on this. It put a massive, like I could put 3 fingers in the hole.
Yeah. And
you could look into the hole.
Right. And that's through the spine.
The spine.
The lower portion of the spine is where it went through.
And huge muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just dense. It's about 8 inches.
Let's just say the backstrap wasn't able to be kept intact.
No, it was like 8 inches or more of pure bone and muscle.
Right.
And when you stick your finger in that entry hole, you just feel bone.
Yep.
Just like you feel bone
like
and meat.
Like gristle, basically, that just got ground up.
It carved a hole that I'm not kidding you. Like I said, like the size of a Coke bottle.
No joke. My 8-year-old could probably stick his arm through it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge hole.
Yeah, that's what it was. I could get like 3-4 fingers in there, and I'm feeling all the way through, and I'm going, that is a massive wound channel.
Through a massive piece of bone.
The hole is huge. Mm-hmm. So it goes through, it manages to penetrate through all of that. But guess what? Once it gets through that, where does it pop into?
Yeah.
The chest cavity.
Right.
It pops right into the bull's chest cavity.
Yep.
Now, when it goes into the chest cavity, he's facing this way, let's say, and it pops in on the right side of his body, and it exits through.
So, it didn't actually like fully exit, but it was poking in the hide behind the offside shoulder.
The tip of the broadhead was sticking through the hide on the opposite side.
Correct.
So it had enough momentum to go through the bone, the shoulder, the back strap, the bones in the spine, carve that giant hole that your 8-year-old could put his arm through.
Right.
And then enter the chest cavity. And what's inside the chest cavity?
You got a left lung.
The left lung. And it actually hit the top of the left lung and exits behind the first rib in the crease of the offside shoulder.
Right.
So I guess I'll never know if it went down on a 1 lung hit, because the second arrow clipped that other lung. It went into the other lung. We didn't actually like pull that lung out and go through all the work to go and look at it, but I could feel the hole and I could feel the lung. So I don't know how much damage was done to that other lung.
Well, and afterwards,
I still submit. It didn't matter.
Yeah, and I don't think it did matter. But like after, which we didn't film or anything because we were in the last leg of getting the meat out or whatever. But right after that, right before that, I got the tenderloin out on that one side, and like that lung reaching up in there. I mean, obviously to collapse that second lung. So we'll never know if it would have died on the one lung. But I mean, that bull went no more than 65 yards after the first shot.
Yeah, when that arrow hits it, he has to climb a little bit of a hill.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of runs up the hill we were on.
Hits the peak of it,
and he goes down. The total distance was about 30 yards to the top of the hill and like another 30 yards down the hill.
At most. I mean, 20 to 30 yards on that backside, but even on that backside, it looked like he just piled.
Yes.
Just nose dove into the ground.
It looks like he was just like coming down that hill.
Yeah.
And fell, just plowed into the ground, which indicates to me that there was so much blood loss. He probably was about to fall in front of me.
Yeah.
Now, had he fallen right there in front of me and I didn't put a second arrow in him, people's perception of the effectiveness of the head would have probably really hit home more.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you don't know, and you can't know unless we tell you, is the bull barely ran like 20 yards out of sight and then was dead like 30 yards beyond that. Yeah. And I think he died. like on the run.
Honestly, I think he
within
was on
it
the
was
run
like 10 seconds, 8 seconds
Mm-hmm.
from when I put the second arrow in him. He fell over.
Yeah,
we should say that he could have taken another 10 minutes to bleed out. I don't know.
Right,
but I think he lost enough blood and had enough oxygen problems that he got a total of 60 yards and fell over. That's a maximum he could run,
mm-hmm.
and he just hit the ground.
Right.
So when someone says to me, hey, you know, you probably learned a lesson that you're not going to use mechanicals and lighter arrows anymore. The data is the opposite. I'm going to continue using the setup I have. I'm actually wildly impressed with it, and couldn't have been happier with the results. Yep. Especially given the fact that I've used the setup that these people are promoting, that are like caught up in the heavy FOC or heavy arrow or fixed blade broadhead, and I've had those animals go 200 yards
or more
and not bleed.
Right.
This particular situation, there was blood the second he got hit.
Right. We didn't show a lot of that, honestly. There's a few shots of you walking by the blood and stuff. I really didn't, and that's on my part. I didn't really film much of that, but there was a ton of blood. We didn't have to because we didn't have to.
We were like following blood. There it is.
Right.
Got around to the top, and I'm like, and I looked down, and there's the bull. So there was no blood trail to really have to play with that much.
Nope.
And the amount of blood that you saw for the entry wound being as high as it was,
right, going uphill,
he climbed the hill. There was less blood on the uphill as soon as he went down, and it started to like really show more, which is typical sometimes, depending on how the body cavity's filling and so forth. The fact was, it was one of the easiest blood trails to stay on top of,
right?
And it was not there was no exit at all
on either side.
The other side had blood coming out where the tip was sticking out, but the blood never got out of the fur.
It went down, like it didn't even get to the dark spot on his hide. It just kind of
went down. And just kind of, so there, it definitely punctured a hole, but it didn't cause the. No. So all of that blood and the wound on the top, the second arrow, it didn't bleed at all. It couldn't.
There's no way it's going to push itself out the top.
So I'm working with a pretty, traditionally, if you were to take that shot that I took with a fixed blade, it might have probably exited his throat or chest, and maybe you get lucky and you hit an artery or something right there.
Right.
But but generally speaking, that neither of those holes are going to bleed much.
Yeah,
and he's not going to bleed fast.
The shot was too high to take out heart on as it's coming through that cavity.
I feel like I was able to take a shot and cause massive damage due to the broadhead I chose to use and the setup I have,
right,
and get away with a shot that I wouldn't get away with another setup. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
and I mean, people can. I'm just saying that's my takeaway. That's what I think. There's going to be plenty of people have a different opinion. That's okay. I'm not trying to convince you.
Yeah,
I've convinced myself. I'm just trying to tell you, like, I look at it, the opposite is of many people looking at this scenario. And I'm also adding that to 2 years of death switch broadhead use, mechanical.
Right, exactly.
And the Megameat on bears, and then seeing your animal shot with the same heads and Jeremiah's and others, and bouncing it off, like I said, Barney and Davis, Sam and stuff. It's like, I have now kind of come a little bit full circle. I still think 450 grain is a heavy arrow in most circles, but I'm blown away by the performance of this G5 broadhead. I use the DeadMeat, which is a little bit smaller than the Megameat.
Yep, the reason 1.5.
The reason I wanted to use the DeadMeat, just because, and guys are using the Megameat on elk. Right. I talked to a lot of people using the Megameat on elk, and I got to wonder, if I had used the Megameat on that bull, would it have even changed anything? Because again, it's a 1/2 inch smaller overall. So the blades on the Megameat are just a tiny bit longer, all 3 blades that deploy.
It's the exact same setup, just a longer blade.
Yes. So when it went in and it hit the rib, I think it would perform somewhat the same. Because really it's the ferrule that did a lot of that work.
Right.
And then some of the blades, you could tell the blades had cut as they expanded. They cut a 1-inch section out. I think that's where the 2 blades deployed and
basically took that chunk of rib out.
Just took that 1-inch chunk out. So I think the ferrule probably sort of hit the edge of it, snapped it. The blades popped out, cut the 1-inch section out, and it just kept on going. So had it been the Megameat, Once it got past that rib, by the way, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
It's all soft tissue from there. Blades are sharp enough. Would it have got similar penetration?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. I do know this, that I can err on the side of still a massive wound channel without the added, like maybe I don't need that much of a wound channel. Like I got plenty of wound channel.
I'll tell you, I wish on my two axis deer, that doe and that buck, which it's two totally different varying sizes. Obviously an axis buck is not an elk. Yeah. But those big bucks are about the size of a mule deer. Yeah. And then the does are probably a little bit bigger than a coos deer. Maybe a small white-tailed deer. Right. But I will say, like, just from the ones I shot with the rifle, they're freaking tough, dude. Like, Drew at Tricer can vouch to this. They are tough animals, but I almost wish that I would not have used my Megameat on them and used the DeadMeat. I mean,
the hole in the hide is so big.
But, dude, like, I mean, it is gigantic. It's like, I've laid the hides out, and I'm like, you have these two.
Can't you sew them up?
There's nothing to sew. Like, it's just, it's gone.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
My bear hides, it's similar. You see the holes are like, they're so big.
Well, you see on the picture, you have your hand there, you have the broadhead there. That's a 2-inch wide cut broadhead.
What's more impressive, and if you're listening to this, is to look at the video of the entry exit on the body cavity of the bear.
Right.
And then when you guys see the video come April, May, when you see the film and you see the blood come out on instantaneous, and I've been hunting, I mean, you're going to be blown away. When I was hunting up there, I was talking to my friend Jeff Downing, who owns the outfit where we were at in Alberta.
Yep.
You got to have a guide in Alberta for bears as a U.S. citizen.
Right.
And we were up there. It was fun. Amazing place. And Jeff does an amazing job getting these bears. But he's been killing bears with bows for 20, 30 years or something. His dad owned the outfit before he did.
Right.
I mean, he's been doing it a lot of years. And the performance of the heads of those Megameats blew him away.
Right.
And he was on that, I got to start telling guys just to start using these, because it's devastating. The performance difference is not even remotely comparable.
Yeah, especially on a bear, and like being able to tree stand hunt it and have a kind of a, it's not controlled because it's still a bear and they're still wild, but it's like having a little more of a controlled area where you can choose when you're going to shoot that bear and
it's just
stuff,
a test of equipment.
Exactly.
Right? Like you're not compromised too much, and you can take your time taking a shot, and you really got to see in more than once.
Yeah.
Because I shot 2 bears. My friend Marty shot a giant bear. He had a slightly different design, and it still performed well.
Yeah.
But his bear went a lot further than mine.
And I do think his shot was definitely further forward.
That shot's almost not good enough.
Yeah, and that's like in that film, it's such a good breakdown of bear vitals. Because where your elk and deer, your vitals are up in that chest cavity. That bear chest cavity goes to a point. It doesn't round out like an elk or a deer.
Like I do with every film, I try to make it educational. And we're in the middle of nowhere. They've got a crib, wood sort of crib set up. How they crib it in for bait.
Yeah,
this is a close encounter hunt. You got bears climbing the tree you're in. I mean, it's unnerving. There's no question. You see bears fight each other. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty wild experience, but it's not as though there's a stalk involved.
Yeah.
It's not as though there's an elaborate hunt process. What there is, a lot of good vibes from camp.
And strategy too.
There's a lot of strategy.
Yep. Coming in the wind right, the baits.
And then there's a lot of keeping it together under pressure. There's a lot of judging bears in this film. And there's a lot of anatomy and analysis, archery shots post kill, which I think is super educational. All of that's going to be, because you're going to see the video of what the arrow does in a close-up situation, and then you're going to get to see the video after forensic sort of takedown of the bear afterward, which you just don't always get. A little of both. Anyway, I think you're going to really like that film coming up. And then Brad and I did our sort of annual adventure.
Backcountry bear hunt.
We backpacked in. We got up in the waterfalls. We got up into the mountains at Snowline. Mountain goats were in the same draw as the bears. It's a mountain man. It's a mountain man's mountain hunt.
Yeah, it's cool
for bears. So we got a couple bear stories and films coming your way before bear season. Yep. But when you watch this sheep film, which is coming out, by the way, we're going to sell tickets if you want to join us at the movie theater in Salt Lake during the Hunt Expo. We'll have that up here soon. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a killer theater experience.
Yes.
This film is a knockout. It's a cool film. Yeah. But you're going to see, again, like you decide, like, just data wise, how you feel about the Broadhead and what it does.
Yep.
It's been an eye-opening last few years for me.
Well, I'm curious to see like the live data too from Dan State and Elk Shape. He's, over the last couple of years, he's kind of transitioned to a mechanical broadhead. And so he's been in Texas the last 3 or 4 weeks, just shooting lots of stuff to do firsthand in the field testing on mechanicals and different broadheads and stuff. So I'm curious. I'm very interested to see his results.
Yeah, I kind of just want to see data and results.
Yep.
Not theory,
right? Just
real world experience. Everyone has a nightmare story with a fixed blade, with a mechanical. Like, I've got some stories from both.
Yeah, right.
So the good news is it does appear that the last few years especially, the technology just is getting better.
It's skyrocketed, yeah, for sure.
I don't understand how those blades don't snap or break like they used to. I remember shooting some animals with some mechanicals in 2016 and going, I'm going to go back to fixed blade. But now, I don't know. I should have an engineer on here, but
it's super new to me because, like, the state I grew up in, up until 2 years ago, fixed blade or mechanicals were not legal. So I never really experienced them that much, but man, so far, I'm liking it.
I can remember having some debates where some people were very angry at me when I was saying I like this fixed blade, heavy FOC arrow, and it's just the killing machine. And I got some pushback from some fairly well-known people in the hunting industry saying, look, I like wound channel. I think you're on the wrong path here. And I was like, well, we're just having a discussion. I just know what I know.
Debates are great.
And it went here and it broke this bone. It did this. And I got some animals that, had I had a mechanical, it would have stopped.
Right.
Probably.
Right.
Maybe. I don't know. Because now I'm seeing the mechanicals break ribs like they're not there.
Yeah.
You're talking about a whole different sort of robustness that I don't think they had in the past. When you had like a Rage throwing out like an aluminum ferrule, I think there were some issues that were experienced here and there. Or it just didn't have like, I think on the G5, it sort of ratchets down and locks in a way that I think might stabilize the whole head. I don't know the designer. I just know, know results. Okay.
Yep.
Exactly. So anyway, I just wanted to share what the experience was with the setup, kind of give you some backstory on why we're running the head we did and how we did it and why we did it. And look, I started, that basically got me introduced to Prime, by the way. It wasn't the other way around. We didn't go and meet Prime and then they gave us some broadheads. It was the other way around.
Right.
I was like, I'm really impressed with what has happened here. Hey, have you met the guys over at Prime? I've never really talked to them much.
Yep. And
basically got introduced to them by our friend Jeff Helm, and we both kind of knew some folks over there, but didn't know them well.
No.
And then a relationship formed because of the gear we liked.
Yeah, and that's the other thing we didn't really talk about. Like, our buddy Jeff Helm, so he lives in Texas, and so he does a lot of guiding down there on certain places. They shoot tons and tons of animals. I mean, hundreds of animals a year, whether it's aoudad or axis deer or whitetail, exotics, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I really leaned on Jeff for a lot of information before we even talked to Prime, because we were very curious. I'm very curious about a expandable broadhead, because I don't have the experience with it like even that you have.
Yeah.
And Jeff was very good about just showing me results, not talking about it. This is what you need to do. It's just showing results of what they had seen on so many animals being killed with them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we dove down that avenue.
Yeah. And I feel like really what I wanted was I didn't want to have to tune my bow to perfection so I could get it, or tune all my arrows and shoot every fixed blade to make sure my flight was dialed in. It is so freeing to just screw on a mechanical and have it shoot exactly the same as my field tips.
Right.
Get the bow dialed in more or less so that, out to 100 yards, I'm getting the same flight. My arrow's lighter and faster. And at 450 grains or 420 on the bears, my arrow is cooking.
Yeah.
And I'm getting much more forgiving shots at longer range.
Yeah.
I really wanted to go that route, and the fixed blade world comes with pros, but I'm just seeing it be less compelling for me year over year.
Right.
And it is nice. Right now I have a lot of confidence, man, that I can put an arrow in that little tiny target zone that I want at all these different yardages, and just know there's not going to be if it's windy, those blades up front aren't going to catch anything. They're just going to fly smooth.
Yeah. Well, Barney talks about it all the time. He'll take his accuracy over the other stuff.
Yeah.
All day.
And, I'm not going to try to drive that arrow through the front shoulder.
Yeah.
I might try something like that with a Valkyrie system.
A little more selective shooting.
But I've seen too many nightmare scenarios even with that. So, I'm going to use the tool the way it's meant to be used, try to pick an angle that's going to give me what I want.
Yeah, right.
And on that bull, man, I just, in my mind, I replay the decision to go, I'm going to go ahead and put this arrow in there. It's a tricky angle. It is a tight shot, but I got this. It's one lung, but I think it's going to cause so much damage. It's over. Yep. And it all sort of played out.
It did.
Per my per plan. So the penetration, I mean, honestly, both arrows, I couldn't be happier with it. It went through the entire chest cavity and tipped out on the opposite side of. It didn't stop mid chest cavity.
The blood flow kind of spoke
volumes
for itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did.
But let us know what you think in the comments section. If you have experience that's contrary to ours, love to hear it. I think this is just us having a discussion about what we know. You only know what you know, right? What your experiences give you. I'm someone who's not afraid to risk stuff or try something different. And maybe afraid's not the right word. I'm curious to try something different. I remember when I talked about this setup in June and July, because we covered it. Yeah. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to use. And a lot of people were like, as is common, big mistake. I hate to see you going in this direction, right? And other people are like, I've been going down that road for a long time, and I totally am behind it. Now we have some actual personal experience using the setup with various animals. Without a doubt, it is the most impressive setup in terms of accuracy, trajectory, flat shooting, penetration, wound channel. Yeah. It's the most effective arrow broadhead setup I have ever used in all the years of archery. There's none I would choose over it at this point. Yeah. For the balance of all the things I want, giving me what I want. And, you got other people with totally different views. I know Hunting Public has run some pretty heavy stuff, and the Ranch Fairy has talked about it a lot. And then you got other archers who poo-poo that whole thing. And for me, though, I feel like I I'm just happier and more excited than ever to go out and more confident than ever with what I've got. But like I said, this is just us talking about our experience, sharing it. Take it for what it is. We're not the know-it-alls, or I'm not going to be upset if you have a totally different opinion than me.
Yeah.
We're just having a conversation and putting it out there. Not disparaging, hating, knocking on anybody else's setup. Shoot what you want. Yep. I mean, shoot what you want. I'm just going to tell you where we're coming from, and I think it's a productive discussion to have. And Absolutely. If we come across a different result down the road, and I do some, and I'm like, dude, this broadhead or this setup did not do its job, you're going to see that too. We're going to go over that and go, this was really disappointing. But so far, I just haven't had that happen, and I don't foresee it. But the whole point is, one of the reasons I really enjoy watching Joe Rogan's podcast is Joe is always willing to change his mind,
right? If
he gets new data.
Yep.
He's like, this is what I think, and I'm pretty firm in that. But if I'm presented with new data, I'll reevaluate. His ego's not tied to it. And that's how I feel. Yeah. I'm not tied to this. It's just, this is what I think, given the experience now. If I get new data that changes my mind, I'll move in that direction. Same thing with the Valkyrie. There was a time where I was like all in. Jagger, I'm not. I think it's great. I do like the front of center. I think that for certain animals, it's devastating. I saw Pedro shoot a Cape Buffalo. I didn't particularly like his arrow setup.
Yeah.
He didn't get the bull. Came back 3 months later or a year later.
I don't remember.
And he shot the same bull.
Same bull.
Same bull he wounded before. He relocated that bull.
Yeah.
And then put an arrow similar to the first arrow. But I don't remember what his setup was for that. But yeah, I'm in love with my current design, but not sure I would try. I shouldn't say not sure. I'm confident I would never use that on a Cape Buffalo.
Right.
That's not the arrow for the job, but for elk, I just showed you, worked pretty freaking good.
Yep.
So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think about it in the comments below. Appreciate you. Catch you on the next show. Till then, stay gritty.